And are you refreshed?
Yes.
Good. Now what? There should be fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer. Doesn't work that way, does it? Yeah.
I'm new. I only have discovered you in the past few weeks. But I
Can you hear? Can you hear us?
And I'm thankful for what I've heard. Feels true. I have many questions, but the one I think I'll ask is, when looking at internal guidance, sometimes I find it...
When feeling for it?
Feeling for it, thank you, yeah. I find it hard to feel the difference between fear and intuition.
Well, sometimes, as we were talking earlier, a don't go this way and a go this way mean the same thing. But in the feeling of fear, you really are, anytime you feel negative emotion, it always means exactly this. You're looking at something right here and now in a way that your inner being is not. In other words, your opinion and your inner being's opinion are not the same. So when you feel fearful, it's just a vibrational misalignment with what the source within you knows to be. You see, if you wait until you're way out here on an extreme wobble, it's hard to tell what to do because there's so much momentum. But if you're catching it at the earlier stages, it's easier to feel. In other words, when you think about it, if you don't have some subject in mind, when you think about it, if we just ask you, you know about emotions? You felt different emotions. You know what it feels like to be happy, and you know what it feels like to be concerned. Do you prefer to be happy or concerned?
Happy.
Well, it's easy to say that, isn't it? But if you were in the middle of big-time concern...
Oh, it feels good.
And well, it doesn't feel good,
No.
but it's hard to stop anyway. In other words, if we were to say, well, don't be concerned about that, you say, well, that's easy for you to say. I'm concerned for all of these reasons because there's a lot of momentum. You can't just... We like to say if the train is going 100 miles an hour that way, and you want it to go 100 miles an hour that way, you don't want it to happen all at once because it's really hard on the contents of the train. And really, it's not even a physical possibility. And so that's why we said to our friend a while back, the way to get rid of doubt is to do it before it gets started. And so the way that you soften fear is by starting emotions that don't feel fearful and encourage those. It's more about what you are encouraging rather than what you are discouraging. It's more about what you are thinking than it is about what you are not thinking. It's more about giving more airtime to things that feel happy than airtime to things that feel fearful. In other words, it is a certain thing. We could throw a video up on the screens in this room about something that's happening somewhere, someone's impression about what's happening somewhere on the planet, and if you were willing to sit and watch it long enough, fear would begin to burn in your belly because you would reach a point of awareness that your inner being will not join you in, and that feeling of fear is in fact your vibrational divergence from who you really are.
So maybe the difference is, so when Esther was playing her hide-and-seek game, it was a this way, not this way. Whereas fear, so if I was...
In that example, it was a this way, not this way. But when you've got fear, it's a this way, not this way. In other words, there's more momentum in all of it. And so the stakes feel higher. And the reason the stakes feel higher is because your control of those conditions is less. You getting this?
So if it's intuition, you don't have a lot of angst, or it just feels like...
Well, in order to even have intuition, you've got to be in alignment. Intuition and inspiration, we are meaning the same thing. So what that is your realization of what Source knows and is encouraging given where you stand. That's literally that path unfolding that we were talking about earlier. We like to approach this conversation in this way. Imagine a cork bobbing on the surface of the water, and let's call that tuned in, tapped in, turned on. Let's call that pure positive energy, high-flying disc, for the sake of this analogy. Now, you can hold that cork under the water, and let's call that negative emotion. In the moment that you let go of that cork, it's going to bob right back up there. The only reason it's down there is because you've pulled it down there. And the only reason that you feel fear is because you've pulled it down. In other words, you've brought it from the vibration that it would be in otherwise. So well-being is unless you disallow it. That's the best way to explain it. Well-being is unless you disallow it. Now, that's hard for people to hear because they disallowed it without knowing they were disallowing it. They've been disallowing it just by acting like most other normal people. So it doesn't feel fair now to have the momentum of their disallowance show up. But most people were not even aware they were disallowing it until there was a manifestation because they are not associating the way they feel with anything valuable. Isn't that good to know? But if you're aware of the way you feel mattering, so you're catching it again and again and again in the early subtle stages when it's easy to stop the momentum, then you never get to the place of fear about anything. You just don't get there.
So once you're there, tapping into intuition is just finding a feeling that feels better? Finding a thought that feels better?
Here's the thing. You can't be inspired and fearful at the same time. They're two very different frequencies. And so you could say, do I prefer to be frightened or inspired? And say that to yourself on a pretty regular basis. And in the morning, think about what it feels like to be inspired. In other words, think about that hit you got on something. You just had an impulse and you followed it through and you saw the payoff immediately and you knew it was inspired. And hold that vibration. Tracy called her mother one day. We love this story. Years ago, Tracy was in California. Jerry and Esther were in San Antonio. And Tracy said, "Oh, I got to come home. I need my Abraham fix." And Esther said, "What's going on?" She said, I can't. She said, I just don't feel good. I need to come. When's the next Abraham seminar? I'm going to come. I want to be in town when it happens. And so Esther told her. And then Esther said, "Why do you want to be at that seminar? What is it that the seminar, what are you thinking it will do for you?" And Tracy says, "I don't know. I just remember that, last time I was there, we were in Austin, and I was sitting there, and I don't even remember what Abraham was talking about, but I just had that feeling of, yes, I just wanted to shout yes and jump to my feet saying yes." And then she said, "Oh, never mind, it's back." You just have to focus where it is, you see. You have to have already made the distinction of how this feels and how this feels, and then you just have to guide yourself into the thoughts that feel the way you want to feel. But you have to let the way you feel be the manifestation you're looking for. That's the key to living unconditional love. Letting the way you feel be the manifestation you're looking for. Because you can do that now, you can do that now, you can do that now. And you know what? Now is all you got. Now is all you've got. So if you can do it now, oh, that feels better. Did you get what you were looking for? No, why? Well, because you're happy. Well, my happiness doesn't depend on getting that. Doesn't prevent it either. Yeah. Enough?
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, really? You really don't?
I have so many questions, but...
Well, we just want to make sure that inspiration thing is satisfied within you.
So maybe intuition is an inspiration feeling, and fear is a...
Here's the way to look at it. If you feel positive energy, it's your inner being. If you feel negative, it's your mother. What we're getting at is mothers have been warning you about this and warning you about that and warning you about this and warning you about that. So sometimes your feeling of not wanting to do something, if you want to know what you want to know is, where's this coming from? Is it coming from my alignment, or is it coming from someone else's worry about something? And we know mothers always get a bad rap, but good enough?
Yes, thank you very much.